can you give us a little bit of information or what you have? I know you came in the civil case, but what information we have about the informant and how that information came to be. And I say this because I think something that hasn't been really covered is this process of how this informant informed on Joseph about what were things going on in his house. But I want to get down to the nuts and bolts of like what actually happened with this informant. Do we know anything about this informant's background? I know there's been some information on social media about it being a female, and suppose this female made posts. I don't know how much of that is true, so I'm just trying to get an idea of what happened with this informant.
So I can tell you what I learned from depositions. Usually in a criminal case, you never get to do depositions. So we actually got to depose the officers, and one of the things, since we had counterclaims pending against them at the time, I wanted to make a timeline. So from start of that day of the search warrant, what happened? To tell you as best I can remember what happened, summarizing all the depositions. Sean Cooley and Mike Estep, so Officer Poundcake and King Kong Bundy, if to put them in context of who these two are in they were doing an investigation in reference to like an assault or something like that. This person who was there, they're collecting that information. That person tells them, hey, I know a woman who has a large quantity of weed. So they get all that information. They call Brian Newland. Brian Newland meets them, and then the three officers now go to Winchester, Ohio, to this lady's house and do what they call a knock and talk. They knock on the door, talk with her. Eventually, they ask her about the weed, and she admits she has weed. They go into the bedroom, find the weed. They found a felony level of weed, so it was a lot of weed. And so it's very unclear because they don't say they started questioning her at the residence, but they must have done something. And so from there, they let her drive herself to the police station. Brian Newland drives by and takes a look at Mr. Foreman's residence, which is out of the way on the way to the police department, and then goes to the police department. At that point, this lady is put in an interview room, and they interview her. There is no recording of that interview. It supposedly didn't work. I guess if you touch the microphone, it'll stop recording. It sounds like a janky system, if you ask me. Anyway, so they did an interview, Brian Newland did, in which she said that she was holding the marijuana for Mr. Foreman and basically painted a bad 50 Shades of Grey movie scene or something. I mean, it's what it sounds like when you read it. From there, Brian Newland goes out, decides that they're going to turn the lady into a confidential informant. As part of the confidential informant pathway, they create what's called the confidential informant packet. So they get the information of where she lives, her criminal record, and everything. She did have a criminal record. She had some criminal records for... I know that she's been charged with at least 2 B&Es since the raid. So I know she had a criminal record, drugs, stuff like that in her past. From there, they make her a confidential informant. Mr. Newland starts typing up the search warrant from his notes, and then to get an audio recording, he sends back in Mike Estep and Sean Cooley. They go in there and re-ask the questions. She then changes her story, according to them, from I was holding the marijuana for Mr. Foreman till I stole it from Mr. Foreman. And so she just keeps changing her story, but none of that makes it in the police report, in the search warrant. The search warrant is all the good stuff, none of the bad stuff. Eventually, they all get together. They go ahead and start calling people in to execute the search warrant before the judges even sign. Mr. Newland takes the search warrant, hands it to Mike Estep and Sean Cooley. They read it. Sean Cooley says he only proofread to make sure there's no spelling mistakes. Mike read it, and everybody's thinking when I said, well, it didn't have any of the stuff she told you, and they're like, oh, we just assumed Brian, this is what they told Brian, which I'm like, I would think if you're reading a search warrant and it doesn't say or it contradicts what you heard, you should say something. What do I know? And so from there, the search warrant is taken. The then prosecutor, David Kelly, reviews it, says it's good to go. They take it to the house of Roy Gappert, and Roy looks over it and signs it at 6:55 p.m. Then they go back. People are coming in. They supposed to have their team briefing, which must have been a shit show, because every one of the 7 I asked the question in depositions, what were you looking for? Now keep in mind that one of the exhibits is the search warrant. You should say what I'm looking for is in the search warrant. Instead, we had one officer was looking for marijuana, one officer was looking for narcotics, one person's looking for a juvenile, one person's looking for sex trafficking. I mean, it's like a what the fuck were we looking for game. That being said, they all get together, go to Mr. Foreman's residence to execute the search warrant. We know they get there around 8:01, according to Brian Newland's return on the search warrant. Mr. Foreman's video camera system corroborates that. So first thing that happens is Mr. Newland goes up to the front of the house, knocks on the door, looks in, according to him, sees a couch against the door, and then for some reason not articulated in the deposition, but articulated in the body cam, he decides to He-Man this sucker and try to kick it with his foot open. Door versus foot. Not like the movies, is what he learned. So he goes back to his car, picks up the battering ram, then they go to a side door of the house. And basically he bashes in the side door, and that's where you come into the house and you see that famous scene with Lemon Pound Cake where the door goes. Which then there's a question, how many hits did it take the door? Why didn't you hit it at the doorknob at the weakest point, you know? Why? And now according to him, and this is where it gets a little murky, you've heard all that. Now, I asked Mr. Newland, what was the rush? Why execute the warrant so fast? And he said because there was a kidnapping victim and time was of the essence. If you truly believe there's a kidnapping victim, why would you have tried to kick the front door with your shoe? You just let everybody know in there that there is someone going to breach, which means if there had been a kidnapping victim, you now have a hostage with a gun to their head because you did that. Yeah. So it made no sense what they're claiming versus what they did. Likewise, if you're worried about guns and you're worried about kidnapping victims and safety, what is the first thing through that breach door? That damn ballistic shield that was made so much deal of at trial because it stopped shotgun blasts and everything. So why wasn't that the first thing through? It was the second thing through. I mean, you can see everything on the Lemon Pound Cake video as they come through. So there was just so many damn things about it never made any sense.
Thanks for staying with us to the end. If you believe in this work, like this video and subscribe to help us amplify our message. And if you want to be part of the change, check out the links below to support or get involved.